Okay, welcome again to another chapter of the most boring channel on the internet of bland gaming. It has been requested of me to create a video explaining how I prepare for my Alien RPG game specifically. Okay, so we are no longer in the bland gaming game garage. We are actually in the lair, which is what my spouse actually calls the office for bland gaming. So this is where I do a lot of my preparation work. This is where I store a lot of my RPGs. And today we're going to be talking about what I do as a GM, as a game mother, on how to prepare for my Alien games. Now, I've only ran Chariot of the Gods, first one. I'm currently running some other Free League titles. I'm running Coriolis, and I am running Mutant Year Zero Gen Lab Alpha campaign. But today we're going to talk about Alien. So for today's beer of the day, it is Irish Death, a dark, smooth ale. We'll start out by getting a sip off of that, taking a long drag off of that one. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about this. So first of all, the thing you're going to need is you're definitely going to need the game itself. And then let's talk about Chariot of the Gods specifically as an example. The next thing you're going to need is obviously the scenario itself. I would not play Chariot of the Gods or even Hope's Last Day for that matter. And today I'm going to talk about the cinematic scenarios. I have not ran an Alien campaign yet, so I don't know exactly. I'll make a different video on how to run the campaign mode. I will say this, that the scenarios and the system itself is very deadly. So the first thing that you're going to need is I would not run these scenarios with less than 4 people because of the secret agendas and things like that. You're really going to be missing a very cool component of what makes Alien unique to other role-playing games. So with those, with a minimum of 4 players, you're going to have a lot more opportunity for intrigue and personal agendas to run with that. So make sure you get 4 players. Make sure you explain to your players beforehand that mood is important. And I'll talk about some things that I do to help create mood. And then also make sure that your players understand that the game is deadly. They're going to lose their characters. Don't fret too much of that. If they plan on it, you're playing out a horror movie, and the very first Alien, the 1979 Alien, would not be that much fun if all of the crew members survived. The second Aliens would not be that great if the Marines just went in there and completely wiped out the aliens. Then we wouldn't have that sense of peril, and we wouldn't have that sense of horror, which is really what we're trying to replicate here in this game. Okay, so explain to your players, hey, look, this is a deadly game. It's a very combat does occur in it and everything, but unlike a lot of other role-playing games where combat is designed to be overcome, this combat is in particularly very lethal. And for me as a GM, I am not a confrontational GM. I do not like the board game part of a lot of role-playing games because, quite frankly, then it feels like I'm just playing a board game versus my players. I'm rooting for my players in most of the games that I play. So I really had to get outside of my comfort zone when GMing Alien because it is such a unforgiving system. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about some of the gear that you're going to need. Outside of the book itself and the adventure itself, the one thing I will tell you, make sure that you read the scenario all the way through, cover to cover, before you start. And then also make sure that you read the scenario before every session. And because I'm old, I would also recommend that you read the rules before every session, so that it's fresh in your mind and you have all of the details in your mind. So at least take an hour reviewing either the night before or even possibly before the actual scenario itself. Review the scenario and review the rules the night before. Okay, so then the other big thing that I would recommend is I talked a little bit in some of my other videos about the dice. These dice are just so convenient as far as separating between stress dice and regular dice. When we first started playing, the dice were not available at that time, and we played with 2 different colored dice, and then later played with these dice where we actually had the symbols. And I found that my players were going, well, wait a minute, does the black dice mean this? And does the red dice mean this? And wait, which one was my stress dice? Oh, I can't remember. Or then you'd see them roll, and they wouldn't declare which one was their stress dice or what have you. By having these dice here, 2 things. It helps with the theme because it's got the little face hugger on it, which is just great. And then the other thing that it does is it makes it so much easier and eliminates any question. So I really recommend picking up the dice. They're not that expensive. The deck as well. The cool thing about the deck is that it has some of the pre-made characters on the actual cards in the deck. And hold on a second. Let me go ahead and I'll grab those. Let's see if I can. Again, I am not a professional YouTuber, so I'm doing this one-handed. But this is a really good example of... Oh, here we go. This is what some of the character cards. This here is a character from Hope's Last Day, I believe. But you get the awesome artwork by Martin Grip that's on one side, and then on the other side you have the basic stats here. It's not too complicated and everything. So these are a really cool asset here. And then the gear with these as well. I love just being able to hand my players, okay, well, you found an incinerator unit. You have this great artwork that shows what it looks like. I mean, it's just straight from the movie here. And then the basic stats right there on the back. It's so convenient. And then having the initiative cards with this cool artwork on the front of it, and then showing what the initiative is. It's just so much more immersive than you can use just a regular deck of cards for that, but I prefer using the thematic game cards. I love them. So I would say that you don't need the cards or the dice in order to play. I would almost say you need the screen. I love the screen. The screen creates mood, but the big thing about the screen too is it's got some great tables here that you're going to need. The panic roll table. Having this right here for you is great. Cover and range information it comes very handy in combat. And then the critical injuries table is also extremely handy to have as a GM sitting right there for you. It's got a definition of fast actions and slow actions. This is just, for me personally, there's some screens that just have information that you don't need on it. This one here has all the information that I could, everything. If I could make my own screen for Alien, I would not change a thing for this one. This is just a perfect screen, and it's reasonably priced too, so I would highly recommend that. Okay, so the other thing about mood. So I talked about it in my other video, is I use probably 4 or 5 of these little lanterns here. These lanterns give a very like a spacey electronic feel to them. So they serve 2 purposes. One, it allows us to dim the lights so that we can kind of maintain kind of a creepy, scary mood. The second thing that these do for us is, and like I said, they give almost an interior of a ship, and I have some photos I'll show you here. Almost an interior of a ship kind of feel to them. And then they also serve a purpose in maintaining mood in the sense that when the lights are on, we limit the humor and joking to being more related to the game, in-game. So, like I said, in my previous video, that there is a place for comic relief in the Alien universe. We have, we have Hudson, and we have Brett, and even Newt in some parts does some pretty funny stuff and everything. But yet we don't want it to get derailed, because when you get it derailed, you lose that sense of horror that is really what we're striving for here, is to have people sit there and get creeped out. And when you're sitting and you're watching a horror movie, you want it to scare you. You want to have jump scares. You want to go, oh my God, that's creepy. And you want your players to have that sense of foreboding when they are exploring these dark hallways and corridors within a derelict ship with the feeling that something is about ready to grab them and jump out at them. And it's hard to maintain that sense of fear and that sense of mood when everyone is just telling fart jokes every couple seconds and stuff. So we find that when we want to take a break or we want to have a conversation outside of the game, or someone wants to check their phones and everything, that's another thing too, is my group has been really great about, we don't use the phones, cell phones, unless it's directly game related, and I'll talk about that in a second. So everyone stays off their phones. We call it watching TV. If your character isn't doing something right now, my pet peeve is when people pull out their phones and it's not their turn, or that, something else is going on, and they pull their phones out and they start playing a game on their phone or something like that, or they start checking their Facebook or what have you, or their Instagram. We do it. We say, hey, look, watch TV. Watch TV in the sense that just because your character is not in the scene, watch the scene unfolding as if you were watching a movie, as if you were watching this scene in a movie. Even though your favorite character, Captain Dallas, is not in this scene here, let's pay attention to the conversation that happens between Parker and Ripley, okay? So we call it watching TV. Anyway, so when we do take a break, we just turn all the lanterns off, we go into the kitchen, we grab another Irish Death, or whatever people are drinking. We have a hot tea drink or whatever. And then we also allow the humor to come on, and then we say, hey, is everyone all set? Is everyone all set? Then go ahead and pull the lanterns and put the lanterns back on. Okay? So anyway, the next thing is... Hold on a second. Honey, can you go ahead and step on out? Thank you. So we're talking about Alien in here, and my 6-year-old daughter just walked in, and she's staring at me going, what exactly are you doing, Dad? I really don't want to be talking about mature... and then, again, I am not a professional YouTuber and everything, but good news, I am actually the best dad ever. So there's that. So I have that going for me. I don't even say I'm the best GM ever, but I'm just trying to tell you some of the things that have worked for me. So, anyway, so maintaining mood. Oh, that brings up another point, though. I have 3 very demanding children. I recommend that when you run your games, run them at night. Run them at night after your kids have gone to bed. Okay, and I have a non-gaming wife who goes up and watches Netflix off in a separate room. So what we have done is, like, I make sure that I have a teenager as well who is a GM. I make sure that his group is not running a game in the other room while I'm running a game in my room, because then he and his friends have a tendency to be loud and laugh a lot more than we do. So it's all about mood. I want to make sure that my 6-year-old daughter is not sitting in my lap while I'm trying to describe what a scene with a chest burster. Okay, so limit your distractions. And playing at night after kids go to bed, or after it's dark, definitely helps maintain the mood. I can't imagine playing any horror game, whether you're playing Alien or Call of Cthulhu or the upcoming Vaesen game, anything where you want to maintain a creepy mood. It seems to me that it is a no-brainer to play it at night. So I like to play it on a large dining room table. I have a very huge dining room table that I use for all of my gaming. It seems to work the best for me. I like having the players there, but we have played before where I've set up a cart table and a chair in front of me, and then allowed everyone to kind of sit on the couches, and then I had some creepy music playing in the background. So talking about that, okay, so let's see some of the things that I've done. So what I did here is I went ahead and created folders for each one of the characters' agendas. And what I would do is I would go ahead and send those out to the players and let them see the pictures and everything, or what their personal agendas were. I would send it to them quietly, things like that. We also use notes, in the sense that if someone is seeing or if someone sees or hears something that the other players don't, then we go ahead and we send notes back and forth to each other. I also made sure that I downloaded, although I described the neomorphs in general, I went ahead and downloaded a bunch of the pictures of them, so that I could show, yeah, this is exactly what you see, coming out of the embryonic sac here. The little neomorphs running around and what have you. Again, the Martin Grip artwork, we really have, you got to take advantage of that and whatnot. So I went ahead and did that. Had all the characters, and then printing out the maps. What we did was we printed out the maps in sections and then taped it together. So we took a large map of the Chronos here, and we would print it out on it was probably 8 sheets of paper. And there's printer-friendly versions that are out there available online that you can use. And then you just stick the 8 sheets of paper together and then put it down. Anyway, then music. Okay, so this is pretty cool. This is a picture of our captain here and our engineer, and this kind of shows the ambiance and what it looked like here when we were playing using the lanterns. And we were playing it right around Halloween time, so there was some Halloween decorations and what have you. So this really goes to show that what the table looks like from my point of view and everything. Okay, so 2 types of sounds that I use when I was playing. I use actual sound effects, and this one here is a great one. This is Nostromo sounds, and it seems like this is just a loop from the Alien Isolation game and everything, but you can play this in the background. I had a little wireless speaker, and just having this in the background playing was when they were on their own ship, when there wasn't any real stress or anything like that. Now, when they began to investigate the abandoned ship in the scenario, I used the soundtrack here from Alien Isolation, which again, this stuff is all available on YouTube, and you can get it. And I had it playing through a wireless speaker right there, and it's very dark, it's very moody. And the other thing about it too is it's ambient, which means it is designed to be playing in the background when other things are going on. So believe it or not, video game soundtracks actually work better, in my opinion, than movie soundtracks, because movie soundtracks, the music will a lot of the times dynamically fit the scene specifically, right? While video game soundtracks are designed really to be playing as ambient music in the background. I love Call of Cthulhu, and there is a company called Cryo Chamber who makes ambient, dark, scary music. I use a lot of that stuff for my Call of Cthulhu games, but I think the Cryo Chamber stuff would probably work great for for the Alien RPG. Last, I cannot emphasize it enough. The Alien Covenant, the movie, it was tolerable. It was not really the best Alien movie, in my opinion. But this soundtrack is a great soundtrack. And if you are going to run the scene, now I hope you all paid attention. There were spoiler alerts in the beginning, but in the scene where the neomorph emerges from Dr. Cooper's head, you have to use this track, the Med Bay from Alien Covenant, when describing this scene here, because it builds. And what I did beforehand was I practiced describing the scene in conjunction with the music there, and even though the players were telling me the things that they were wanting to do, I tried to time it perfectly so that as the music crescendos and it gets into its climax, that is the moment when the embryonic sac emerges and cracks open and bursts out of Dr. Cooper. So anyway, those are some of that's some of the best pieces of advice that I can give you. Again, I'm not a professional GM, excuse me. I have a tendency to GM my friends, people that I know. I don't go to do cons or anything like that. I think you're really, we do the best we can, as far as with, being able to play where and when we can. But if you have an opportunity, I think in your home with the dark ambiance is the best way to play the Alien RPG. Not necessarily, the con thing is really not my thing. A lot of people will play online using like Roll20, things like that. Obviously, now that we're in the middle of a pandemic, I'm open to the idea. But I prefer face to face, especially when you're acting and when you're doing voices, accents, things like that. Oh, that's another thing that I do in all my games too. Is when creating a character for, especially a game that is very important with NPCs. For creating a character, I base all of the NPCs off of either real people that I know in my life. I base their personalities off of them. I base how their voices sound, whether or not they have accents. And if you don't have that many people in your life, I mean, I have people at work, I have people that I went to school with, I have family members, I have people I was in the military with and everything. And so I think of these certain personalities and try to, so when I'm describing it in my head, I have this picture of this specific person in my mind and everything, or even celebrities or characters from other movies. The only problem with imitating celebrities and characters from other movies is then you, like, if you decide to describe one of the female characters in one of your Alien scenarios using Ripley as a model, then what's going to wind up happening is that you're going to be describing, and your characters, your players are going to catch on to that, and they're going to go, oh, this is so blatantly obvious a Sigourney Weaver ripoff and everything. So I'd recommend using other actresses outside of the Alien franchise, or again, what I do is I use characters that are actually, I use people that are actually a part of my life, from people from my work, what have you. Don't use any of the players in your group. I don't think that's a good idea. But definitely, I think there was one time I ran a Battlestar Galactica RPG, and I had a very specific crew lined up all up and down, and every single member of the crew was based off of someone from my work. So I had, and it was funny too, because some of the villains or some of the less likable characters and everything were some of the people that I didn't like at work and everything. But that's the best piece of advice that I can give you. And then, look for little things like, I use my Alien motorcycle piece. Miniatures. So we'll talk about miniatures. I don't like using miniatures in combat. However, we did use miniatures to go ahead and represent. Oh, gee, would you hand me the AVP miniatures over there? So a few years ago, a company called Protos made a board game called AVP, and it is, hang on here. It came out with these great, fantastic miniatures here, and the board game was a lot of fun. Still like it, but the real motherlode is just, it's got these beautiful miniatures that you can use, and we use miniatures to represent more so which room the characters are in and what have you. So this is kind of what they look like unpainted. Let me get so it focuses there. And then, this is Hicks that I actually painted here. It's about as good as we're gonna get, I think, in the quality here. And then, you've got your drones and your warriors. Here's one that I actually wound up painting, and really it's just using a lot of washes and highlighting and stuff like that. The power loader, I haven't painted it yet. The queen, I haven't painted it. And then it's got some, you got some predators here too. I painted this predator, although not necessarily part of this game. And then you get, like, they have these really cool Weyland-Yutani commandos, which were a cool addition. Now, what I used to represent the players is I use miniatures from a board game that I have called This War Is Mine, and it has a very space trucker-ish kind of look to them. And we use those miniatures, and then I wound up using the alien miniatures there to represent neomorphs, and then I think I used miniatures from Zombicide to represent the abominations for that specific scenario. So anyway, if you have any further questions, I don't write down a script or anything, so I kind of just spew out my thoughts when I've been making these videos. Like I said, I can't emphasize it enough. I'm the most unprofessional YouTuber in the country, in the world, probably. So if you have any specific questions or comments or anything like that, please leave them for me in the comments. If for some reason you actually like watching this channel, please give me a like and a subscription. If enough of you subscribe, then maybe I'll retire, but probably not. Really, I'm just trying to reach out for the game. I don't even know what the goal of these videos are. It's just reaching out to the game community. And thanks again for tuning in to the most boring channel on the internet. And until next time, here's to all of you, and to alcohol, and to Irish death. So cheers, and stay healthy, and stay sane, and go out and read as much of your role-playing games, and buy your Free League stuff, buy your Alien stuff, and get all set up. Get yourself some Roll20. Get out there on Roll20 and do some scenarios, or just really take advantage of this time to paint your miniatures and read your source books and everything. So take care, be healthy, and we'll see you next time on the most boring channel on the internet.